All right, so then I'll
Yeah,
kick this off. Um, Welcome. This is session number 4. You said you have some news for me, and I have not read anything that you've typed here. So, what is your news?
oh, there's loads of news, Adam. Where do we even start? Okay, let's start with the sad stuff. Virtual route setter. I have not done anything with it again. I
Yeah.
still want to continue it at some point, but just right now there's too much other stuff going on in life to be able to focus on that and get joy out of it because it's still something I want to enjoy. But if I get home right now, I just want to lay on the couch, play some video game, watch some programming streams. There's this guy called Adam. Don't know if you know him. He's pretty
He's
good.
pretty good. He's a smart cookie.
No, so when I get home, I just don't wanna like have to work. Like I want it to be fun. Right now, it doesn't feel like fun. Uh, so that's the update on that, pretty much.
Okay. Well, wait.
Uh,
Before we go into the rest of this, I want to expand on the too much other stuff going on. So, do you think this will naturally change, or is it something you're going to need to consciously change?
no, it will naturally change. Like I bought a house, as you know, recently. So I'm trying to sell my house right now. There's just a lot of my mind, a lot of stress caused because of it. Once everything about that is finished, I'll need to like remodel my home a bit and everything like that. And once everything of that is done, then more free time and more enjoying time should open up for me for sure.
Yeah.
So it will come naturally.
Okay. Did you happen to see the latest video I did? I think this last week about my 4.5 month update.
Yeah.
Do you remember what I said about transition periods? I'm going to repeat it anyway for all the people who haven't heard, but I want to know if you have the context of this.
Vaguely, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what I had said is that I think transition periods are almost always difficult, even when they're for good things. And in this case, it's like you bought a house, awesome, you feel good about that. You're selling your house, I mean, hopefully you feel good about that. Remodeling seems exciting. And yet you're in a transition period, and it's like, hey, you want to work on virtual route setter, and you feel like you can't right now. Um, it sounds like you have the right view of all of this. So I don't think there's necessarily a problem, but I think it's really worth highlighting that transition periods are tough. So just, keep that in mind as you go through this. And yeah, in a couple months, maybe you'll be in a different state and then you can figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. And indeed, as you said, like I have identified this as indeed that you call it transition period. So I'm not blaming myself for not working on it. Like I'm like, just can't handle it right now, and that's
Yeah.
fine as well. This is also why when I was still working it, I tried to take better notes, keep like an organization chart somewhere of like what I was working on when I left off. So hopefully we'll get to see if that worked out or not. Uh, Sorry, I might be coughing in between quite a lot because I just came back from a flu again. So
No, that's totally fine from a technical perspective. From a health perspective, I'm sorry to hear that.
so yeah, that's about it for this. Actually, the transition period. It's gonna take a while, but it's fine. I am aware of it and I've accepted that. So
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and I like what you said about keeping notes so that when you do get back to your code, you can settle right back in. But honestly, even if you hadn't, I think the project was an early enough stage where recouping
yeah,
that context shouldn't have been too bad. So it's a good practice to be in.
that's true. That's very true. Yeah. So the next point on my list is moderating yourself. This is something like not really work related, but something I do in my entire of my human being.
Hmm.
Is I do not know how to moderate myself. Like I do something and I want to go fully for it. Like if you looked at like SR notes or the speedrunning thing, like virtual route setting. If I work it, I want to like spend all my time on it. If I don't, I spend no time on it. If I go climbing, I want to climb for like 6 hours. Like I don't do just half an hour. If I eat food, I want to eat everything and not just half of it. Uh, and most of the time, this is a good thing, but not always. We had this. So I'm in the first 8 respondents team of my work,
Hmm.
and there's this yearly competition we do, and I always like I go for the victory. There's like a little competition going on. You can score points, and it's very fun to do. Uh, but I am not the the how do you call it, the team leader of my group.
Yeah.
And after the thingy, the team leader came to me. He was like, "Yeah, like your knowledge really good, your enthusiasm really good." He's like, "You try to be like the leader, you know." And he's like, "That should be me. It should be coming from me. But like, try to moderate yourself, and like leave that to me because it becomes confusing for everyone else. If you
Yeah.
also step in and I got a big mouth, I'll shout something like, "Hey, can you do that?" And he's like, I should be the one doing that. Uh, and this is just something I find really hard in everything I do is moderating myself. I always just like fully go for it. which sometimes oversteps my boundaries because of it, or it affects me otherwise negatively.
Well,
So do you
so
have anything on that?
yeah, first of all, how did you feel when this person who was the leader asked, "Hey, do you mind toning that down so that, the leadership structure is clear?"
I think that was fair, especially like looking at the entirety of the team. It is better to have just one contact point and no like confusion as who is doing what. So I think that's totally fair. But on the other hand, I'm also thinking, which I told him, like, there's also a reason I started doing it because you weren't doing it. At least not. I
Ah,
felt like he wasn't really, like he was at some point he was like just standing a bit on the side. I was like, hey, this needs to be done, and he didn't, give any instructions. So I was like, I'll just say tell someone to do it.
I see. Okay, so the way I
But
look
then
at
you
this
know what
is,
I yeah.
oh, you first, you first.
So, but then what I should have done is go to him, tell him like, hey, should someone do this? And then he should have been the one giving the instructions. So
Yeah,
I think it is fair feedback that he gave.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I think there are two parts to this. Uh, Part one is the going all in, and part two is this particular situation. So
Yeah.
they may or may not be related. Like wanting to compete and being able to spend 6 hours doing rock climbing are maybe similar, but like, I don't know. I think this particular situation, that's why I asked you at first, how do you feel when this person did confront you about this? And it sounds like you got the right attitude here. Yes, it was fair what they said. And you also had a valid point, and maybe you could have communicated it in a different way. So, as far as I'm concerned, this situation sounds like it was good, it was handled. The way you described this yourself, part one here, going all in, is that it's a good thing most of the time. So, in your mind, if you don't see this as a problem, you're not ever going to try addressing it. The things that you see as problems are things like this situation that arise from it, maybe, but that are different and can be addressed differently. So, do you typically see problems from going all in on something?
No, but at some point it also becomes destructive. I feel like, like for example with climbing, I just push myself too far. If I go out with an all-out dinner with friends, so like as a stupid example, I ate too much and I always eat myself like until I get sick, basically. So there's like niche points where I feel like my going all in becomes destructive almost.
Okay, and what is motivating you in the moment? So, going rock climbing for, let's say, an hour, okay, healthy. Going rock climbing for 12 hours, maybe not healthy. What's going through your head at hour number 3 or hour number 6?
So much fun, like especially when like more people join in, and I just get so much joy of like being around people, climbing together, doing something together. And I just can't seem to like, okay, we've had enough fun. We gotta quit now.
Okay, so in the moment you're having fun. This kind of comes down to how I feel when I'm coding on stream. I I need to take breaks. And it's not something I want to do in the moment, but it's something that I've seen the hazardous effects enough where I just know that it's a thing I have to do. So it never feels like the right thing, but I think you're going to need to do something like that for something like rock climbing, at least, where, yeah, like I said, rock climbing itself is not unhealthy, but doing it for too long, doing it without breaks, you could probably still have fun and just talk to your friends on the side or, I don't know, whatever, commentate as they're climbing. Yeah, I think you need to
Plenty
inject
of that,
breaks.
yeah.
Does that sound reasonable for rock climbing at least?
Yeah, it's something I try, but really suck at. I'll be like, and I even tell everyone that say like, oh no, like I'm just gonna stand on the sides now. And like 10 minutes later, I'll be putting on my shoes and I'm like on the wall, and they're like, "Weren't you not gonna climb?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess."
Okay,
So
so
I try to do this, but I can't force myself to do it.
I would say try setting a timer. I don't know how long is a good enough break, so you figure out what the timer should be set to. But if 10 minutes is not enough, seriously try for like 15 minutes and just say, I am not going to climb for this time. And this is essentially a homework assignment I got from my mentor. But otherwise, I think you run into a case where you look back afterward and you say, wow, I did something wrong. I really need to change something. But then in the moment, there's no indication that something's wrong.
Yeah,
This is probably pain that only hits you, I'm guessing, afterward or feeling like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, okay. So that's climbing. Let's look at eating now. You said you go out with friends, you eat a lot. What situation are we in for that?
I mean, it's just one of the examples. But yeah, if you go like sometimes we go out to this like all you can eat thing, and like we're having fun, and I'm just eating and talking and eating and talking. And I'm like, oh, my tummy starts to hurt, and it's like, oh, this also looks really nice, and like just getting joy out of something makes it so I can't stop basically. And I'm normally not that big of an eater,
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I can do it this once. It's gonna be fine. And at the end of the evening, I'll be like, oh, my stomach hurts.
Okay. Well, there's another consideration here, which is that, if this were happening literally every single day, it's probably an issue, right? But like celebrating or being with friends or having an occasional thing and then, I don't know, having a stomach ache afterward, it sounds like it's already in moderation. Although,
Yeah, and I mean, like this isn't an issue per se. It was just one of the examples to like illustrate how I'm bad at moderating. But this just comes down to like basically everything. Where I'm like, I always try to push things too far until it starts becoming an issue. And
yeah.
I like I'm really bad at recognizing like where is this boundary of hey, Remy, if you don't stop now, it's gonna affect you negatively.
And so this is where I wanted to find out what's going through your head. And you explained it. In both of these situations, you're liking what you're doing, but
Yeah,
then too much of it leads to something bad eventually. And so in the rock climbing
yeah,
case, it's like, okay, I think just taking breaks could be fine, and possibly setting a maximum amount of time that ramps up over the course of however long. So if you haven't been climbing in a month, probably starting with 6 hours is bad, even if you're taking breaks. But pushing things too far, like I said, if your viewpoint is such that it's mostly a helpful thing and that you're enjoying yourself, then you won't ever kind of naturally change this. And I don't know where else in your life this is problematic. So, is there another example you have where it's leading to some negative result repeatedly?
I mean, yeah, basically when I've seen it also when I play a new game, for example. Like I get quite addictive fast. Where like okay, I'll not be doing anything else but playing that game at that point because it's so much fun. Or like if I got a new coding project, I'll just be spending all my time on that until it isn't fun anymore.
Okay. Um, with a game, exhausting the fun is totally fine because there's so many games out there. With a coding project, that could be a problem where you're motivated for a bit and then you exhaust the fun of the project and you're like, I'll just give up on the project. And you have talked to me in the past about it's hard to do the last bits of a project. Although I think these are slightly unrelated problems at this point. I think the important thing I would say is keep an eye on where there are, I guess, kind of actual problems here. So playing a game for a while, again, I don't think it's an actual problem if you're doing this for a couple days or a week or something. But if a whole year went by and you were just like, I'm just so into this game, like I can't stop playing
Yeah,
it.
no, it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's like the borderline debilitating at that point. So it really it doesn't sound like there's an issue here, and this is just kind of your personality type. So yeah, I would just say keep an eye on this. And with the climbing
Yeah,
stuff, like definitely you've already identified there is a need to take breaks. I'm even saying I'll take breaks and then I just don't take them. So yeah, maybe consider that.
set a timer. Got it.
Yeah. And then I would say if there is a real problem, then we can start applying boundaries. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the moderating yourself front?
No, I think that was it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so doom scrolling.
Yep. Duolingo streak 81, not 83. I
81. Yeah,
checked it just now.
I don't know how I got that. Yeah.
I think I gave a rough estimate last time. I think I was off by
Oh, it's
two.
your fault. Okay.
So yeah, no, definitely my fault.
I'm joking. But yeah.
No, that's fine. So yeah, still my Duolingo streak. Still enjoying it. Some of the days I get on just to do like keep my streak going. They're really good at that gamification thing.
mhm.
But most of the days I try doing more than just to one thing because I actually want to learn it. Uh, I still want to like upgrade myself to I think I said last time I want to play like a Pokemon game in Spanish. That's like a goal to get out of Duolingo and more into like applicable stuff. But I'm like waiting until our friend starts playing that game just so we like play it together, have some extra
Yeah.
motivation. So yeah, that's where my Duolingo streak is at. I still grab my phone way more often than I want to, but
hmm
I'm not going on Reddit anymore, which I think is a huge plus because of their awful AI update, UI update, I must say.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're really putting the heavy weight on that one, which is great because that was one of my main things last month. Like I want to stay clear of Reddit because it's just eating up so much time. So basically, what I do now is I grab my phone and I just scroll through all the 10 discords I'm in, even though I know there's going to be no message, and I just throw my phone away.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to back up a second here. So I thought in the last one, okay, yeah, the UI thing was the thing that you mentioned last time. You're talking about opening in a new tab, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just write this for myself here. This is the new tab thing. I see this behavior in myself as well, where you've limited the time wasting activities that you can do. And so now you bounce between all the ones that you've allowed yourself to do. and you're hoping
Yeah.
for something new. This is the dopamine hit you would have gotten by scrolling through Reddit and seeing, is there something new? Is there something valuable? Is there something interesting? And now you're looking through a bunch of different discords. I'm not exactly sure what to do about this because in my mind, it's eventually you run out of that content. And if you run out of that content, that can be a trigger for you to do something different. But if you never ran out, or if there was a trickle of something coming in, then you might be stuck there. So about like, do you have a screen time measurement on your phone, or something that measures how long you're in apps or anything? That
No, I didn't get like this overview at the end of the week when it says like, oh, you used your phone 10 minutes more or less than last week. That's it.
okay. I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to set something like that up. Do you have an iPhone, an Android phone?
Android.
Android. Okay, yeah. So I have a widget actually on my home screen that I can just see at any given time how much have I spent on the screen that day, and then it shows the top 3 apps. And I mean, sometimes it's surprising because it's like, oh, I don't know, watching a YouTube video for longer than I thought. But at the very least, it gives you a gauge for how much is too much. And then from there, you can figure out, do you want to do something about it? Um, yeah, I unfortunately don't have a lot of concrete stuff because, like I said, I exhibit the same behavior. And then eventually I do get bored and I'm like, okay, I need to get up. So I think you need to hit the boredom point. Um, yeah, to trigger wanting a new behavior. Consider trying a screen time app.
I'm gonna
Android.
scare myself into not opening it.
Yeah, Android should have one built in, I think. And then I think from there, it's setting what is healthy or reasonable to you. I mean, some people, if you're spending 4 hours on your phone every day, they could consider that to be fine. Maybe that's replacing TV for them or something. Um, what do you think is your unhealthiest phone behavior right now?
Yeah, I so I don't have a concrete number in it. I would like it to be just the necessities, like getting a message, replying to that, opening it for my navigation or playing music. I would like to just use it for the necessary stuff and not for any entertainment purposes.
So,
And I am a bit loose with messaging with like including Discord, which I guess is more entertainment, but like I want to have purpose when I use my phone, basically,
yeah,
instead of idling away on it.
yeah, I see that. And like you presumably watch YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Do you do that on your phone? Do you do that on your computer?
I noticed that I started doing it more since I stopped doing Reddit on my phone.
Yeah, so
But I
that's
try to limit that to doing it just on my laptop because then, when I'm on my laptop, I feel like, that's just me time. Like I'm purposefully on the laptop to enjoy myself. But then I think like, it's fine to just constantly scroll Discord or YouTube.
yeah.
And when I use it on my phone, it's to, kill like 2 minutes between building times or whatever. And that's something I want to get rid of.
Yeah, I think it's tough because we have a need for some amount of just kind of mindless activity. And it's very easy with how apps are set up and how sites are set up to get sucked into that mindless activity for longer than you expect. You know, a 2 minute
Hmm.
build time, the build gets done, and then you're halfway through a 5 minute video or something. And you're like, I'll just finish the video. But then there's a new video that pops up. So I think there will always be a replacement activity. And I've heard different things from different people about this. Some people moderate usage of the site itself. So they'll have like a firewall level block where they can't go to it anymore. I don't know if it needs to be something like that. I think, look, maybe part of this has to do with you being in a transition period, coming home from work and being like, I just don't want to do anything. So I would kind of just keep an eye on this for the next couple months. Uh,
Yeah, but like I think, sitting at home in the evening being on YouTube, I think that's fine because that's like purposeful relaxation at that point for YouTube. It's just, like in between something than like watching like a 1 minute video to fill that 1 minute rather than like, just being bored and staring at your screen for nothing.
yeah. So the in between phases, you're saying, when does this usually happen? Is it when code is building?
Whenever I'm like not doing anything, like I'll stand in the elevator, like going down from my apartment, be like, oh, I've got like a minute of standing here, better grab my phone to do something.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. There's like like a 30-second ad roll the YouTube video I'm watching. So I grab my phone and I scroll through Discord instead. It's those little like, 1-2 minute periods of time
Hmm.
that, I can't just, be standing in the elevator and stare at the wall anymore, I feel like. And I feel like I should be able to do it. I shouldn't be so addicted to my phone that like for this 1 minute, I think it's worth my time to scroll through Discord instead.
Okay. So the replacement behavior you could try is something around mindfulness and meditation. But I will say this: phones were essentially made to be addictive. So
Yeah.
you succumbing to it is not a failure on your part necessarily.
No, but I do hate it.
Well, yeah, and so that's where I'm saying I think the replacement activity here for these, minute here and there, you're not talking about in the evening when you're purposely setting aside the time to watch it.
No, no.
I think for that it is like I am going to pay attention to what's around me. And I think there are some like exercises I've tried in the past that I think are kind of interesting. One of them is to just think about what's around you in a way you never would normally think about it. So for example, walking outside and saying, "How many colors do I see right now?" That's something that you need to pay attention. It's probably not a question you've ever answered in your life in terms of like, yeah, hey, I'm walking down the street and I see like green on the tree over there and blue in the sky and whatever. Someone's wearing a red shirt. That's a way of just having you be in the moment and noticing things. And from there, that could lead to other things. So I'd say like start taking a look into this and maybe with your nighttime YouTube watching that you do, find a couple of videos on mindfulness or meditation and just being in the moment. Yeah. How many colors am I seeing right now? I want to write this down just to get you to be in the moment.
How do we define color here? Or like look at the full RGB spectrum and
Yep.
define every hex
I
code,
want,
or
I want, you can have plus or minus 5 in the hex codes, but yeah, then they're a distinct color after
that is
that.
that's it. Okay,
So enumerate every single color you see.
and name them.
Yep. So consider watching YouTube videos on mindfulness in the evenings. This is something I think a lot of people struggle with, though, and I think it's something that it doesn't come naturally. People do not like turning their brains off, even though I think that's what's healthiest at sometimes. And if you try ramping up too quickly with meditation, it'll feel boring and probably tiresome. So my wife just last night went to a meditation like class or something, and she thought it was gonna be half an hour. And when she found out it was gonna be an hour, she basically fell asleep during the class. So it sort of defeats the purpose of mindfulness if you're literally asleep. But she did say it helped clear her brain. So that sort of thing helps, and it's just hard to get us into that practice. It's sort of like when you're climbing and you want to just keep going. So
Yeah.
I think this would be good to look into. I think your entire being is going to fight this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or fully embrace it, because like I can also see myself getting into this, and now I'll be watching 4 hours of mindfulness videos every day, until like it takes over everything again because I can't moderate things.
I,
Like that's
Yeah, I
the
doubt
other
it. And
pitfall.
and also watching mindfulness videos is not the same as being mindful. In fact, I think they're two very different things. So if you somehow are just literally sitting there facing a white wall for 4 hours and just thinking, I have nothing going on in my head right now, then who
I
knows?
just turn around.
Yeah, maybe that turns out to be a good thing. But either way, I would say at least try introducing some of this behavior and seeing where it takes you, because I think this could do good things for you. So yeah.
Yeah.
We should track how this is going. Yeah. Okay, celebration. Reminder for Remy to upload a celebration picture. I'm guessing this
Yes.
reminder did not actually come to
No, it does
fruition.
work because I'm getting reminders right now because I did celebrate
Okay.
buying a house, and I also took the feedback. There were some complaints about too much whipped cream and stuff like that. So I made it so you can see the cupcake this time.
Did you put this in negative color so that in dark reader would be good? Also, is
I
this
did.
whipped? This is whipped cream with a cupcake on top. I don't think I've ever seen this before.
I mean, it's to stop the complaints about not seeing the cupcake under the whipped cream. But yeah, this is how I celebrated buying a house.
Oh boy. Okay, well, look, I was just mentioning this beforehand, and you might have heard me say this, but I think celebrations are important, and I think they should be kind of tied with retrospectives. So, how about we run through a mini one right now? What was the difficulty that you overcame in getting this house? What are the stresses that you've overcome that you've gotten through? How has your life changed as a result?
Oh man, I don't think I have overcome him yet. No, the hardest thing was like seeing the house and just having to go for it like the next morning. There was like no thinking about it. There was no time to think about it because otherwise the house would have been snatched under my nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just going for it is something to be proud of. Not having kept back with like a million doubts in my head. Like, am I gonna enjoy living here? Can I afford it? Can I? I mean, being able to afford it is quite important. I did think about that. But just going for it, and we'll see where it ends up. I guess normally I try to be really cautious with everything I do, and think things through, and make sure of everything, and check every little detail. But there was, you know, no not much of that going here.
Okay, to me, that represents a mental shift that I think is actually important. And I don't know if a cupcake to you represents that mental shift. And this is why I think the
It
retro
keeps it upside down, so I
it
mean,
is
maybe.
upside down. That's true. So it's like turning your mentality upside down. Um, I really think it's good. You know, there are times when we need to act, and they're in different ways than what we normally do. And buying a house is one of those examples where it's not just a purchase; it's a huge purchase. It's something that you're going to
Yeah,
commit to for typically years. I think the average amount of time is like 7 years to stay in a house or something. So it sounds like you're happy with the house. It sounds like there's remodeling you want to do, which will happen after you've sold the last place you were in.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So now, how do you feel you're better equipped to do this next time around?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I am. I think it'll be the same next time. I hope to not have to buy another house again. To be fair, but yeah, no, I guess I guess I'll be able to better answer this once we're like through the moving phase and everything, and I'm living there. Because then we know how it panned out. Maybe I'll be homeless next month because I actually couldn't end up doing it.
Well, I hope that's not the case. And if so,
This mentoring session is now from under a bridge.
yeah, I think we'll have to buy you more cupcakes in that case. Um, yeah, I hope this ends up going well for you. And the part about being better equipped, yes, I think hindsight is 2020, and you can look back and
Yeah,
say, here are the mistakes I made, and here are the things I did well, and maybe not even well informed. They just happen to be mistakes or successes. But my point is, I think there's something to learn from practically everything, and you've probably learned a lot in this experience, and it's just not over yet, and so it's still swirling around in your head. So we'll give the dust time to settle, and then we'll see
yeah.
what happened through this.
I've learned that selling a house is way bigger hell than buying one. I thought buying one was bad, but man, selling one is even worse.
Yeah, how so?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much. I had like a 300 questions questionnaire to fill out about my own house, and I was like, do I? Do I know this? Do I have a roof? It
Wow,
was
yeah.
it was it was a lot. Yeah.
And did you get through all that so far? I know you haven't sold the
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
but you got through all the questions and everything.
yeah. I had to fill in all the questions to like be able to put it for sale. But there's like, I live in an apartment complex, so like half the information I didn't even have. So I'm like,
Mm.
where do I even get this information? And like chase down all the information and stuff like that. So that was a bit of a chase.
Yeah, these are, you know, it's like I've talked to a friend before. I don't know if you heard that interview I did with Amanda, but she said that when she's body doubling, she does adult things, as in like paying taxes or
Yeah,
figuring out
yeah,
answers to
yeah.
these
I heard.
questions. And it's like the things we don't plan to do, but they need to be done, and someone's got to do them. And usually, you're the only one on the hook for buying a house or selling a house. So, yeah, hard to get someone else to join in on that.
Yeah, that's the part. Like, you have to do it all yourself. Like, I don't have a partner either, so like it's literally just me and forcing myself to do all this boring adult stuff, as you mentioned. Yeah, that's was a challenge at times.
Yeah, but that's the important part, right? Recognizing it was a challenge and that you overcame it. And that's what I think
Yeah,
the cupcake represents. So the next
yeah,
time you bite into a celebratory cupcake, just remember I am a changed Remy. I can do things I couldn't do before. Anyway, moving on. So you've got training listed here.
yeah. So I actually doing my AZ 900 tomorrow and on Friday.
What,
So that's like
what,
the Azure Basics training, I think it's called.
what was the term you said?
I think it, like, yeah, they got like these wacky codes for it. I
Oh,
think
it's
it's
a
called
code.
like
Oh, never mind. Never mind.
AZ
I just,
900 or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. It's like the Azure fundamentals. 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, I have that planned for tomorrow and for Friday. So I'm actually getting started with the trainings. Not just talking about I need to do more trainings, but actually getting hands on.
And
And
what brought this about? What got you to schedule it for the end of April, which I guess is now tomorrow and Friday?
yeah, my senior colleague, he did a training last month, and he came back feeling really well about it. So I was like, okay, I just need to get it over with and plan something right now. So like he came back, he talked to me about it, and right then, right there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna plan my training right now. Stop writing about it and the lost time and whatnot and whatever else is going on, but just do it. So and
Okay.
then when I had signed up, there was no backing out. So that was basically it.
Okay. Yeah. And I know I can't ask you about how the training went because it's tomorrow, but I,
Right.
you expressed hesitation about the amount of work, the breadth of technologies now that you're using. Are you still feeling some anxiety about this? Do you think the training will help?
Uh, yes, I still feel the anxiety, but yes, I also think that the training will probably help
Yeah.
because now it's like, I don't know the unknown. I think it's a lot of work, but maybe like once I do get into it, it's not as much work. But I only know when I see it. So
Yeah. I really think that the training will put a dent in that at the very least, because right now Azure is just this large blob of technologies, and it's hard to pierce that and to figure out, okay, where do I start? How do I start piecing this together? And this training is specifically for people in your position. It's the, like you said, it's the fundamentals, right? So
yeah,
yeah, what are the concepts? How do I start? And then there are two other trainings you said you had to do by the end of the year. Given that your colleague did the first and liked it, do you think you might schedule the second one on your own? What's your plan for scheduling those?
yeah. So I looked into directly scheduling the other ones as well, but they weren't available when I checked. Uh, Unless I had to like fly to Canada to do it or whatever. And my manager's like, "Nah, we ain't doing that."
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'll probably just schedule those once they open up. Like I'm keeping an eye on it.
Okay. And ideally, this first training is a good enough experience where you feel more intrinsically motivated to do this, because I know you talked to your colleague. The colleague really liked it, said it was great. I'm sure you'll have a good time. Wait, by the way, didn't your colleague say it was like a week long?
Yeah, but he did another like he did like the follow up training basically.
Oh, okay. Are you
But like
gonna do
even
that?
like him just talking about the general going on the training and enjoying it and coming back from it, like like it was useful. Was the incentive for me to like, okay, I need to get started on my trainings now.
Yeah. Are you forced to do that follow up training?
Uh, well, not forced. Our manager doesn't really force us, but it is one that's uh, I don't know what it was, but it will be relevant for my work. So yeah, I will probably end up doing the same one.
Okay, yeah. And it just happens to be that your colleague did it all pretty much back to back.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I'd like to know how this all goes. I definitely want to talk about, I'll just write this down for myself here. Find out how the training went and what you learned and what impact it had on your work. So you said that you inherited a web app, I believe, from an old coworker, right? And that
yeah,
this was it already using Azure?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He made it using Azure.
Yeah. And so I think this should give you some clarity into what's going on there. And I really do think this will be like you're entering a dark room and you've now turned on the light and you're like, oh my God, I can actually make sense of what's in this room. I think that's what's going to happen here. And then I think that'll also spark the desire to learn more about this. I know you said you naturally want to learn, but these are massive things and you have a lot on your plate right now. So yeah, I'm hoping it works out. How is the rest of your work going? It was one of the specific questions I had, which is that your manager said you would drop projects eventually. Is everyone still feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, even more so than last time because like personal stress levels are also just higher. Like everything going on has definitely influenced my work negatively, as in like I'm just not as efficient at work. And I also talked to my manager. I told him like, hey, got this buying, selling house stuff going on. Like my mind is just completely somewhere else but work most of the time. So we just said, well, which ones can you not work on right now? And I'm not working on one of my projects right now. So
Okay.
like I'll have to pick it up eventually, of course. But for now, I take more hours off, and he's fine with like, there's also personal life, work isn't everything. So if there's stuff you can't do, just let us know, and we'll see if it needs to get transferred to someone else, or if we can keep it for later.
Yeah, it's good that your manager's understanding. You mentioned, at least I think you mentioned at the beginning, that it's not just you who's overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, the entire team is
Yeah.
still. Like we did our year planning a couple of weeks ago, and I think like we had like 2 times the amount of hours we have in our team in Access or something that we already have to scrape.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think it's good that your manager is dropping one of these projects. I think it's almost unfortunate that it's coming about as a result of the home buying and selling process being difficult, because it sounds like when you did this planning and you discovered, hey, we are double booked, everybody is on everything for the rest of the year, right? You do year-long planning. It sounds
Yeah,
like that's the moment when you say, okay, we're going to drop some of these things. Because otherwise, I think what happens is a lot of companies do something like an OKR process where they come up with objectives and they come up with key results for those objectives. And you might have done something similar without calling it that. But at the end of some period of time, a quarter or a year, you sort of score yourself based on what you'd set out to do. And in this case, you give everybody twice the amount of work that they can handle. So at the end of this scoring period, I think you called it expectation setting. And I don't know if they really give you a performance report or anything, but they might say, well, you still have, 60% of your work left. Well, 60% of your work left when you had double the amount of work assigned to you is actually not too bad. So is this going to impact everybody in the future at your company? Or is there going to be some performance
Mm,
evaluation based on this?
no, not really. When they do performance, they really just look at like what did you do like in the allotted time.
Yeah.
And it's not like okay, we had these things planned out, but you didn't finish two of them, so you only did 60% of your work. No, like as far as I've been right now, they're like, okay, nice, you managed to do this and this in only this amount of time, so that's good. So they really take up, at least my manager takes a really positive approach to that
Okay. Won't be impacted by assigning
because like
to.
he is very aware of the time struggles we have and the amount of workload we have. So like even during the work plan, he already dropped a bunch of stuff, and he's just like, we'll see how far we get with what we got. But like if we got the time, these are the ones we should prioritize. Like it's I think just saying that like he has set prioritization is more fair than saying like he has said these projects need to be finished.
Okay. That is totally reasonable then. Um, yeah, for each project. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think it's pretty normal in any really any size company, I guess, to have more tasks than you have time. And as long as you are not expected to get more tasks done than you can in a given amount of time, then it's okay. So if you have,
Yeah, I feel like
400,
that's where we're
yeah,
at.
yeah. And it sounds like that's the case. And so, but yeah, the way you described it was everyone's feeling overwhelmed. So
Yeah,
that is even with these considerations that you've said. So where is that feeling coming from?
I think we all are just really motivated to try and help as much people as possible. So we try, we probably, you know, take on too much ourselves as well because we want to help as many people as possible. So I think a lot of it is also just coming from ourselves where we just take on too much.
Okay. It's interesting that the whole team feels that way though, because this is a very personal thing, which is what's motivating you, how are you doing this? And yet, if the team feels this way, then it's almost a cultural shift where everyone feels that same pressure. And it could be motivated by seeing other people do this.
And like I have to say, like I'm just guessing. I don't know their
Oh, I
personal
see.
motivations at all. But I feel like when I talk with my colleagues, I was like, we actually want to help people. So I feel like it is also motivation for them, but I can't look inside their heads. So just as a caveat there.
Okay. Okay. So, guesses aside, it really doesn't matter if everyone's feeling overwhelmed. It matters that you're feeling overwhelmed. So, you have talked to your manager and you've temporarily dropped a project for now. Does that give you the headroom you need to be able to do work and feel good about it and then come home and feel good about the things you're doing at home?
Uh, Not really, I think, because I do guilt trip myself a bit, and I feel like like you could have done more today. Whenever I get home, I'm like I'm already getting so much leeway, with having dropped work already. I'm still not fulfilling my own expectations, but that's just me always not moderating myself, still trying to do as I would normally without extra things going on.
Yeah, this is 100% the transition period I was mentioning. I think this is like the celebrations that I said. It's not just buying a cupcake, it's analyzing what led to this cupcake. And in this case, it's not just saying I'm in a transition period, it's now not tampering, excuse me, tamping down your expectations so that they're not the same as what they were. And it's actually accepting that. So it's one thing to say, okay, I recognize I'm in a transition period, so I should not be doing as much work. But then if you still feel guilt at the end, it means you don't really believe that you shouldn't be doing as much work. So this will sound really blunt, but like you need to get it through your head that you do not need to do as much right now. That is why your manager has given you some leeway here. You can take advantage of it, and knowing that you will get back to quote unquote normal at some point. So yeah, do you have any more insight into how this guilt is coming about here? Why do you have these expectations on yourself?
It's how I am, I think. I've always, set really high expectations for myself in anything I do. I always strive, for the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
And not accepting that, or at least not reaching that, is unacceptable to me.
Okay. Think of what's happening in this alternative. So you feel that you're not reaching your expectations. And so now what's the result? And essentially, in my view, it's that you're punishing yourself, but there's no other result, right? It's not that your work is suffering or that your manager has said, maybe you're really not pulling your weight around here or something, right? Like, are you getting that kind of feedback
No,
at work?
that's true.
It,
No, not really.
yeah. So, in essence, within your own head, you've created a prison for yourself where you need to get all the house stuff done, you need to do all the work stuff, and you need to still like go above and beyond expectations and using what time and energy? It's time and energy that you don't have, which is why you're not able to meet these expectations because it's going into other things. So, I think it's really important to internalize this. Yeah. And let me write down some thoughts for a sec. So, um, maybe if there are indications of any negative results. He said no, it's yeah, mostly in your head. Um, what if what if this continued for 6 months? I'm just asking a hypothetical here to see what would happen. Let's say that the home buying and selling process is, for whatever reason, I'm not going to come up with why, still happening 6 months from now. What do you think would happen at work?
Hard to say. I don't think too much, to be fair.
Yeah.
Mm. You know, yeah, I probably not too much. People around me are very understanding of personal situation and stuff like that. So
And
maybe at the end of the year, my review would be slightly lower than my average,
yeah.
but probably not by a lot.
Okay. And now let's flip this scenario. Let's say someone else were in this situation and let's say you knew about it. So someone else is buying a house and for 2 months they're like, hey, look, I'm sorry, I can't do as much as I used to do. Would you feel judgment toward them at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. So
But I put way lower expectations on other people than I do on myself.
yeah. And it's easy to do. And it's like we judge other people by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. I think in this case, it's very much a case of considering yourself to be somebody else for the sake of your expectations. Like if I were somebody else and I were in this situation, I would not have these expectations on them. I just wouldn't. And like I said, easier said than done. But I think recognizing that you're doing well, you're managing everything, sounds like pretty well. Yeah, that there are no real repercussions. So the guilt is not a healthy force in this case. And I've said this a bunch of times in the past. I find that guilt is rarely a healthy force. There's probably some like edge case scenario where, yeah, feeling a little bit guilty about something gets you to, I don't know, apologize to somebody else. And it's like, okay, cool. You apologize to them, you made a situation better, and guilt maybe did that, so fine. But yeah, most of the time in these situations, I don't think it's actually doing anything for you. So I'll try to think about this some more and come up with maybe some more concrete things because at a high level, it's recognize that this is your reality and internalize it. All right. Uh, yeah. Any other thoughts on this?
No, I think we went over it all. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, let's move on then. Uh,
Yeah, so more official trainings. We already kind of covered that I'll be
yeah.
doing more Azure training later this year. Management focused training, I signed up for it and they open up after summer. So there's this, personal growth program thingy where you can say like, hey, this is something I want to work on. Uh, what do you want to work on? Basically, and these open up after summer again. So one of the things I want to indicate in that is that I'm really bad at giving people bad news and like saying no to them. We won't do that, which of course is something you need to be able to do if you want to go to like a managerial role. So I'm just internalizing for myself, like, hey, what are the kinds of things I need to be able to do that I can't do now that people can help me in this training. It's like a 3 day long training back to back to back with like some professionals that help you with these kind of things.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, I want to applaud you earlier. I thought when we talked about this in the last session that you hadn't signed up for that first Azure training, but I recognize that that was a big step for you because you recognized the need for training and yet you kept thinking, well, I don't want to take the time to do it. I don't want to take the time to do it. And I'm now realizing that these problems are very related. The not wanting to take the time to do the training is feeling like, well, what's going to happen with my work expectations? And it's the same thing with while you're going through all this house stuff now, what's going to happen with my work expectations? And you keep thinking, I'll just keep doing the same level of work, even though I have these other obligations. So it's good that you've done this. It's good that you signed up for this too. Is this a case of you also not being able to back out now? Do you have a set date?
No, there's no date yet. I
Okay.
can
Yeah.
still back out of this if I want to,
Okay.
but it is also on my year expectation.
Yeah.
So I've said to my manager, like, hey, I want to do it this year. And he said, okay, but it's going to be in your year expectation. If you don't do this, it will be a negative score in your review, basically.
Yeah. And I don't think that's going to be a problem because I think this is a training you actually want to do and that you've signed up. And so it's just a matter of finding the time at this point. I think this will help quite a lot. I think that you mentioned this earlier with the house stuff. There's a lot of unknowns, and unknowns can be scary because you don't know how deep they are. And I don't think, I mean, you could take every management training in the world and you still wouldn't be prepared for your first day on the job or your 100th day on the job or the first time you have to fire somebody. It's just very different from it is in a sterilized setting, a simulation of everything that you have. So I think these will at least cut down on the hesitation you have or any anxiety you have around management. And I know we're still probably, it sounds like 5 years off from this. Yeah. But I think it's good that you're starting this now and you're taking a look. So really pat yourself on the back. I think this is worth 6 cupcakes. Um,
Inverse or not inverse?
no regular cupcakes. Let's not go too crazy here. Um, yeah, no, I think it's good. And I think it's good you're signing up for this. And that could potentially lead to more trainings. It'll at least let you figure out what are your gaps and where do you want to pursue after that. Yeah. So yeah, stress levels at an all-time high, taking time off when sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we basically covered most of this, but like working from home is terrible for getting sick. Normally, I'd be like, okay, sick, can't go to work because I'll infect people or whatnot. I'll just sit at home and I can't work, so I'll just watch TV all day. And now I'm like, I'm sick, but hey, I got my laptop here, I can work. So I'll just, don't work as I don't expect myself to work as efficiently as normally, but I just don't lay on couch all day and watch TV and get better.
Okay. Hold on a second. So you said it, the first part. I I think I got the message backwards. You mentioned being at home watching TV. Uh, Ideally, there's some level of sickness you hit where you're just not doing work, and I think what you're saying is now that you can work from home, that there is no such level of sickness. You'll just always try to work through
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
I used to be, back when like working from home wasn't as much a thing with companies as it is now. I'd get sick and I couldn't come to work because, either I'd felt too shitty to travel or, I'd be afraid of like, contaminating other people. So I'd be like, okay, I've got to stay at home, not just for the betterment of myself, but of everyone else. And, traveling will be exhausting. I don't want to do that. And then I just physically couldn't work because I wouldn't have a work laptop at home or something.
Yeah,
And then it'd be fine. I just lay on the couch, wasting my hours away. And that's
I got
fine
you.
because you can't do anything else. But now my laptop is there, and I'm like, there's no hurt in just having it open there. If they get a team message, I'll reply to it. If I get an email, I'll reply to it. If I got an hour where I'm feeling a bit chipper, I'll just work on something for a bit.
So, okay, I think there's a difference between replying to a message, let's say, maybe something super important, and putting in an hour of work. But it's becoming more and more clear to me that I think you really need to cut yourself some slack, Remy. Like most people when they're sick, it's like, okay, this is a good reason to take time off of work. You're again, I hope this doesn't sound blunt. You're not the CEO of this company. It's not you who is on the line for making all this money and keeping people at their jobs. And I know you have work to do and I know those are obligations, but you're essentially sacrificing yourself to do this stuff. And there's a limit to that. And you're hitting it. I mean, this bullet point you've written out here, stress levels have been at an all-time high. That is the repercussion for pursuing things this way. So I think you need a break. You need to cut yourself some slack. Ramy needs to cut himself some slack and then put a star
Yeah.
next to this. Yeah.
And I think this also ties up like back into the moderation thing, where I always feel like I have to go for it 100%. There's no doing things 50% in my life, basically.
Yeah. Well, okay, now I'm beginning to see how this all ties together. And like I said, I think cutting yourself slack is important. I think there's sort of an easy way to rationalize this that maybe this will have an impact, maybe not. If you look at this as conditional, if I am healthy, then I can go my usual, go all in on everything. But if I'm in any period where there are variables affecting this, then I have to stop. All we had to do is just add a little fork in that logic, and that's it. Because really, is there a problem if you're working, if you weren't going through all the stress you're going through in your personal life, if there weren't all these projects, yeah, you'd be able to just do a normal day of work, right? And you're not sick, and there wouldn't be a problem. I don't think you've had issues with that in the past. But now throw in all these variables and just be like, okay, now I cut back by some amount. So yeah, I think we really got to focus on this in the next couple sessions and just think how can we adjust expectations so that it's fine for you to just take some time off. And so where do you feel this pressure is coming from to still work while you're
Myself.
sick? Mhm.
It comes from myself for sure.
But like where in that? Do you feel like you're going to let people down? Do you think you have an obligation to do this? Is there a customer who's going to suffer as a result?
Uh, well, so all my customers are internal, but
Hmm.
I feel like if there's so the draftsmen are the people I support mostly. I feel like sorry, if I'm not there to help them, they'll have a bad day. They'll be frustrated because something isn't working or whatever. And like I can save them that frustration if I just pick up the phone for like half an hour or whatnot.
Okay. Do you ever take like proper vacations where you're away for, 2 weeks or whatever?
Nope. You asked the question. I
I
just
know.
answered it.
I know. Oh, man. All right. Well, what I was gonna say is, if you ever took vacations, like, how do you feel then? But I think this is like we're really unraveling the Remy ball of yarn at this point. um,
So I get the opportunity where I can sell half my holidays yearly, and I do that most of the time because I don't take up my 35 holiday days I get every year.
okay. Yeah. So yeah, I now understand the depth of going all in on everything.
I'm a workaholic and full throttle into everything.
Well, look, I think that's fine as long as it doesn't have any repercussions, but you're seeing consequences from this, right? Being a workaholic is okay, but feeling like you're at an all-time stressful high while being a workaholic is then a problem because stress starts having physical manifestations at some point. You have heart problems or I don't know, you get injured faster or maybe getting sick as a result of this. I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, but it's not good to have stress for long amounts of time. And if your personality is such that you put yourself in these situations frequently, then you're the one who's going to have to change this from happening. It's not like work is just going to assign you less work in the future. So I think, like I said, this is going to become perhaps the most important focal point for the next few sessions, which is like, how do
Wow,
we
3 stars.
3 stars? Yeah, this is
Feels
this
like
is
GTA at this point. Can
yeah.
we go up to 5?
We are going to get the police to come to your
Chopper
house.
start coming in.
But yeah, we need to get to the point where you have varying expectations. There is a healthy Remy and there is an unhealthy Remy and there is a like having to buy a house Remy, and these can all combine to, all right, the amount of real work I can do today is 4 hours instead of 8 or 12 or whatever you might think. So how do you think we could get to that stage? If I were to just open-ended question, ask you that.
I honestly don't know. It is like this is something I've struggled with all my life, basically. Where I've always been like this, and I've tried changing this. I've tried because like I also feel like a hypocrite doing it because like if I hear a friend or a colleague say he's like, "Oh, I'm stressed out about work," and I always tell them it's just work. Don't you worry about it. And then I know I'll be opening my laptop at like 2 a.m. because someone sent me a message asking for help.
Yeah.
So like it's something I am conscious about and I try to change, but like I don't know how I am. Uh, and I know it's bad because I tell other people it's bad and not to do it, but then I do it myself.
Yeah, there's this pressure that I was asking about, where is this coming from? And you said it's internal. And then you said, well, what if I let people down? I think at some point, and maybe this is a little bit derivative, but there's some fear at the bottom of all of this. The fear of letting people down, the fear of not living up to your potential, the fear of what this might mean as a result of some action you take. And I think that unless we get to the bottom of that, that you'll probably still feel a need to do this. And yet at the same time, you recognize that if other people do this, no, it really is fine. It doesn't sound like you harbor resentment toward people or that yeah, I don't see anything unhealthy with how you treat other people here. I just see something unhealthy with how you're treating yourself here. So, oh, all right, I'll have to think about this some more. Um, You're no longer sick other than the residual coughing you have right now?
No, I'm fine otherwise.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, because I was gonna say that would be a good point where you could consider like, okay, maybe I should take whatever a half day or something like that. Um, yeah, I'll have to think about this. Note to self: I have to think about this. All right. Well, I also want you to keep this in mind. This whole 3 stars thing about cutting yourself slack, because you know the tenant system that I have, right? Where I every week I look into, okay, if you had one tenant, I think it would literally just be cut myself slack, and and bringing awareness to it, I think could be good. Maybe you have one tenant and just bring awareness to this, because this is generally how I go about solving problems like this: is start with just awareness. Maybe you get a baseline. Maybe you're trying to lose weight, so you, I don't know, count calories or something, or figure some amount of, here's a metric that I can look at, and then figure out what's going into this, what's causing this equation for you to be the way that it is. So yeah, I want us both to think about this. I want you to potentially actually do a retrospective of, in the last week, where did I not cut myself slack, and what were the repercussions. And I think repeatedly you'll find yourself, as long as you're in the situation you're in now, you will find easy ways of pointing out, oh, I worked a little too hard that day. Oh, I was sick and I picked up my laptop for an hour and did some work. And looking back, it'll be much more obvious to you. So I actually do want you to consider doing this. See where you haven't cut yourself slack. See what the repercussions were. And the repercussion, by the way, is pretty much always going to be, oh, I was more stressed. I don't think it's going to be, oh, a customer was actually let down, or because that's another thing I didn't explicitly ask you, but you've presumably gotten some work delivered to you a day late or a week late or something, right? Yeah. And were you ever like, I can't believe this person, or how did you react to that?
No, I always think like, was it important to me? No. So can I have waited an extra day? Yes.
Okay.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
And but like most of the thing, like I don't have a lot of things that people deliver to me. I'm pretty much always delivering to other people. Like, but unless like I'm waiting for some information, and like if they don't give it to me at some point, I'll be like, well, you're the one bothered by this. If you don't get my reply because I didn't get your info, that's on you.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, this is another one of those cases where you recognize for other people this is fine, and for yourself, you still have a desire to get people that information to the work. Okay. Yeah, let's think about this some more. Like I said, I do want you to at least consider this as a tenant and try the process I go through, where it's like, okay, look at just this one thing every week and say what went well, what went poorly. Um, Let me see. I've got a couple more minutes. I want to talk about this that you have here. So why don't you intro the context behind this question?
Yeah. So it's a bit more of an open question or discussion, whatever you want to call it. I feel like lately, I've given myself some thought, like, who am I right now? And I just feel like, in the past maybe year or so, I feel like I'm a completely different person. Uh, like how I look at the world, how I look at things, how I look at myself, just generally like some silly stuff as well. Like, what kind of foods do I like? I feel like it's way different from like a couple of years ago, and like, how I think about stuff. And I was just like wondering, like, is this something you ever had where you're like at a point in your life and you're like, wow, like I'm such a different person from X time ago?
Yes, I do have this happen, and the way I always sum it up the most succinctly is, I used to be an idiot, and yet at every single point in my life, I've said this, that I used to be an idiot.
Oh,
so
like that. Go on.
so okay, here's what I really think about this is, there are ways that I would say, improved my mindset that I did not have years ago. So ways I would talk to people, ways I would think about things, judgments I would cast on people, those sorts of things, where I think I wouldn't do this nowadays. And it makes me almost think like, well, how did I even get this through my head that this was a good idea way back then? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, a couple of reasons. One, you have the totality of the experiences that past you had plus more. So it's not like you've forgotten a bunch of memories from a while ago. Those are still informing your worldview, but then there have been other patterns that you've seen on top of that. And then the other thing that I kind of wrote here quickly is that I think we get into cycles of things. So there were times in my life where I thought, oh man, I'm really into whatever, playing piano music. And for 3 months, I'd be practicing and practicing. And then something, almost the snap of a finger, would change and I would just stop for a year. And I think that's totally normal. I think it happens to us and it could be for any reason. So I don't think any of this is problematic. And yet, I think if you were to talk to your friends and say, "Hey, do I seem like a different Ramy than I was a year or 5 years ago?" They would probably not say that you're drastically different. I think it's more obvious with ourselves and how you think about things. And yeah, or do you feel like your friends would say that
Yeah.
you've
No,
changed?
no, probably not, because I'm
Yeah.
still an idiot towards them. Uh,
I'm not saying you're an idiot. I'm saying
no, no, I know, but I am an idiot towards them. I know that.
okay.
No, and I think it's a good thing. Like I think I've changed with it better, but I don't know. It just like at some point realization hit me, and I'm like, wow, like this Remy would be like 3 years ago. Remy would be like, no, that's not future me. That can't be him. And like for some reason, it became really apparent to me at some point, and I put some thought into it. I was like, do other people experience this? I don't know, coming to Nirvana moment where they're like, oh, I'm different.
Well, do you think
Hmm.
if you could travel back in a time machine to 3 years ago and talk to that Ramy that he would say, "I don't like what you've become"?
We'd have a fight. I'm pretty sure.
What do you think you would fight
But
about?
no, no. I think he would like where I am now. I do think that, even though some of our views would have like drastically changed.
Yeah. So current Ramy believes that past Ramy would approve of current Ramy. And I think
Yeah.
that's the important part, right? I think the worst would be if you felt you were in a downward spiral somehow. Maybe you really took work seriously and now you're like, no, I don't ever want to work again. And whatever, you're sitting around playing video games all day or something. If past you would be like, oh, I disapprove of this, then okay, I think there's something to consider, which is have you strayed from some principles? Did you have a reason to do that? Was there a traumatic event that caused this? But I think this is really just what you're describing is growth. Like you are selling a house for the first time in your life. Like that's not something 3 years ago you would have thought about probably. And yet now it's just a reality for you. You're working, you have more decisions you can make in your life and paths you can open up. So yeah, I think this is just kind of being an adult and growing. And if you don't think anything's problematic, I would just say it's a fun thought. And
There's nothing problem. Like I said, like just more of like a thought I had and just wanted to
yeah.
discuss.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've gone actually maybe a tiny bit over here, but thank you for sharing all this stuff and for giving us some good discussion points. I cannot stress enough, though, this part about cut yourself some slack. So I am going to focus on this. It's got 3 stars for a reason. Any closing thoughts?
I'm only an attic goblin at this point, not a cave goblin with the amount of light.
That's true. Yeah. Although we did go from like white room to dark gray. So we're getting
Yeah.
there. Anyway, good to see you, Ramy. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
And I'll see you in the
Thanks for
next
the
session.
session, Adam.
Yep.
Have a
Bye.
great day.